men kind of drop the ball sometimes is emotional intelligence. Um, just not taught, wasn't taught to me. I know it wasn't taught to a lot of men. I think some of you have had healthy parents and upbringing, and I had a mom and a dad, but my dad didn't teach me and didn't know, and neither did my mom know how to deal with emotions, how to navigate emotions, how to process emotions. It was just wasn't spoken at all in my home, and so I bottled them up, and I created a lot of internal suppressed anger and resentment because no one taught me and I didn't know how to express those. So I think that's a big one, learning how to process, how to express, how to be vulnerable. You mentioned that as well. Um, and because I think when you're vulnerable and you're open, it's a form of power, not weakness. And I think some men feel that, at least I did when I was growing up. And responsibility, I think, is a big thing. Integrity, I think, is being integrity, doing the right thing when people aren't watching. As men, I think that's important. I think it's for all humans, really. But owning your actions, not blaming the world, or owning our own faults, our own actions, our own stuff. That, at least that's what I learned when I was incarcerated. I owned all of it. I created that. I earned my 10 years, and I decided to make some changes, right? So I believe healthy men show up honestly. They don't lie. They don't manipulate. They have respect for people, and they're accountable. They're accountable to themselves. I think another one, I think leadership, I think, isn't a big one. And leadership, not pointing fingers or telling people what to do, not control, but more example, more do the things that you want to see other people do, especially in your family, and in every area, right? I think that's really important. I think when we lead as men, when we do what we say, I think that inspires other people, right? And I think that also, as men, we are visionaries. We should have vision. We should have clarity of where we see ourselves going, where we see the people that we want, that we care about, especially if it's our significant other. I think we should have the vision aligned with them, and alignment, I think, is a big one. So, and then of course the harmony between not just what I just mentioned, but also the feminine side, the connection, the intuition, being able to be empathy at when we need to be with ourselves. I think sometimes is, just being empathetic with yourself, but also with others, right? So I think a healthy masculine doesn't deny. There's a softness to him as well, right? That he can be okay with at times, right? So to me, that's in short what I think. You know, just being healthy masculine is someone that's grounded, authentic, powerful, yet while honoring humanity. I think emotions, relationships, and just isn't afraid. Even when there's a lot going on, and they're courageous in times when they're called, and when we need to step up, we step up, even when we don't feel like it. I think sometimes, um, at least I see it sometimes. It's like I see some categories, like they're caught into, well, my emotions, and I get it, right? My emotions, and we control our emotions. Everybody does. There's no excuses. We have a mind, and that mind releases chemicals from the limbic system in a body, and we can control our thinking. We can control our mind. We can control our bodies. And so often, I think our bodies are telling our minds how to think. And so I think that's just not men. That's just in general, right? But again, it comes down to, I think, um, just understanding that we are so much more powerful than we've been taught, than we've been led to believe. And what I mean powerful is not powerful over others, just powerful within ourselves. So um, that's my take on healthy masculinity.
Can I just say, can you guys hear me? Thumbs up. Yay! All right. Can I just say how wonderful it feels for me to be like, just let y'all do this. Like, y'all, let you guys have the conversation. You guys shine and have all the words. And I want to say thank you guys for asking questions in the chat, because I do really appreciate everything that the men are saying. And then Michael, I just want to say thank you for honoring the fact that men have a feminine side, because there is a lot of pushback against that, especially in the red pill world, in the manosphere world. And we should all know we are both made up of both portions of it. Like there's nothing that really outside of
Mm.
reproductive organs. I mean, we all have emotions, right? All of us have emotions, and none of those emotions are designated or should not be designated to male or female, even though we have been in that space of doing so, which is extremely harmful. Um, and the other thing that I want to say is, I just love Demont is really quiet, y'all. So we're gonna have to push him to speak just a little bit,
Well, that's only because the other
just
gentleman did a good
just a
job.
little bit.
He said
Yeah,
we're thinking.
they
So, yeah.
they are. Um, I do. I'm just gonna ask a question, right? Because I have some. So this is I'm going to push this towards Zach only because he is our resident therapist, and then I'm going to ask the gentleman to pipe in because I want to know: have you ever taken on this action? So Zach, when is it time to go get therapy in a relationship, or when do you see men showing up to you saying, "I need help"? At what stage of the game are they showing up? And men, everyone else, have you all ever thought about attending therapy? What was that? How do we convince other men that therapy is a good thing to attend?
For men in particular, a lot of times, they're suffering from typically some type of behavior that they've used to cope with some emotional problem, whether it's drinking
Mm,
alcohol, gambling, drug use. Some men even use sex as an avoidance or an escape, from the real life problems. A lot of men feeling, depressed, anxious, kind of like cut off from attachment, feeling very alone, struggling in the job market, struggling in the dating space, because of how we tend to socialize now is very much technology based. Trying to find a date on these dating apps or Tinder, trying to find a job, and you're submitting your resume to AI, and just kind of feeling like cut off from people and the potential to meet new people. For couples, usually similarly, I think within marriages, within relationships, men who are drinking too much, spending too much money, having problems communicating with their partner. There usually is a major breakdown of communication, and small daily interactions tend to blow up into these major conflicts between the two individuals. And it's usually then that they come seek clinical help to try and get some grounding and find a better way to communicate, maybe learn some communication tools or techniques. But for men particularly, yeah, there's a lot of um, behavioral problems that seem to manifest if they're not dealing with their emotions properly.
anyone else? Demont, have you ever taken on the pathway to therapy or
Well, I think you're as good as your friends that are around you. I think if you have really good friendships around you, I was fortunate enough
mm,
to have great friends that are older than me, so I learned from them. And as you develop as an adult, you surround yourself with great people. I always make the comparison if you're a basketball player, you want to get better, you go to camp. Well, if you just go to camp with great players, you will become a great person as well. If you surround yourself with great people, great leaders, that will pass on to you as well. So you're kind of a part of your you're part of the you're part of the equation as well as you're only as good as your friendships are around you. And I think you have to ask questions when you meet new people. You have to go outside your comfort zone. Um, I think the more people that you meet, you ask questions, and not just ask questions, but you break bread. You find out about different people, different cultures. I used to travel a lot when I was younger, so I met a lot of different people. And again, you ask questions, but familiarity breeds contempt. But sometimes those stereotypes will will fester if you don't know, you don't ask questions, you don't investigate. And again, not just a little just questions, but break bread, have deep conversations. That's how you get to know people. You know, some people say, "Well, I don't want to go to college." It's one of the great things about college. Getting the degree and going to college isn't the education. The education is meeting people from different social economics. That's the education.
mm,
And that's the thing that needs to be probably still be done today. But I notice when colleges, everybody kind of sticks to their groups. And when you get outside in the real world, then that's when your friendships pay off. Um, you might need to have somebody um, vouch for you for a job. You might have friends who say, listen, this guy I work with. But if you don't communicate, you don't socialize outside your groups, whether it be race or culture or your social economics, how are you going to develop as a person?
Wow. The value of college is that's so I'm grateful for you to saying that, because and everyone doesn't attend college, right? Let's be clear about that. That's not a pathway for everyone. But I do think it is most important to note that being able to move amongst different groups of people, I think that's very vital, to see different perspectives, hear different perspectives. And so I do want to pivot just a little bit because, and I'm going to start with a mindset conversation. And Michael, you are the king in the world of mindset, but I want to talk to you about mindset about relationships. And here's the thing: one of the women in the chat or is asking the question, how can she have this conversation with her mate about whether he's listening to red pill philosophy or Kevin Samuels, or he's a passport bro, or he's talking or listening to other men that are like, listen, a woman is only valuable if she can take care of you. What can we do? What can she say? What are you thinking can happen in that space?
Well, let me see, make sure I got the question. What this woman's asking, what can I do to have a conversation and to be able to communicate better with her partner around, you mentioned the red pill kind of philosophy. I just want to make sure I understand the question that she's asking.
Yeah, she's asking that because a lot of women now are running or they're finding out, they're discovering that their mates are listening to this harmful rhetoric, and it's showing up inside of their relationship.
Okay.
So what can she do? How can she prepare herself for that conversation? What should she say?
Okay, cool. Well, I think for me, when this question, what I would say to her, I would say just her relationship in general as a whole, right? Like how long they've been together and how long have they been not clearly really understanding each other and what each other's beliefs, values, morals, and what they're like. For example, me and my wife, like she knows like what I'm looking at, what conversations I'm in, what I watch on social media. We talk about this every day. I talk about what she's doing. We like have throughout the day and at night. We have date nights every week. Like she knows
Mm,
she knows my values. She has her values, I have my values. It's in a document. We have our lifestyles, we have our lives, we have our negotiables, our non-negotiables, we have our goals. Like there's so much clarity with us that couldn't happen. So my question, what I'll throw back to her is not like really start to get into like this relationship, like connecting more, like lifestyle more, like
mm,
be more present, like asking, like doing the inner work with each other, like how do they know they're loved, how do they know they're heard, because people communicate differently. Not everyone communicates the same way. In NLP we teach various types of communication, so they may have two different communication styles, and so they're feeling like they're not heard maybe. So that's a very big, I mean, that question can have a lot, there's a lot more to that
mhm,
question that we have to unpack. But clearly there is on both, it's not him, it's not her, it's two people. It requires two people to have a great relationship, and two people doing the work to have a great relationship, two people pouring into having a vision and creating a third, which is the relationship in itself, and defining what each person decides together what that would be like. And so the focus isn't on me, the focus isn't on my wife, the focus is on the relationship that we created, and we pour into that. And that's always being adjusted and always being refined. And we're looking at what works and what doesn't work. And we get better at our conflicts, because you're going to have conflicts in a relationship. It's more about how do you navigate them? How do you work through them? How do you learn? How do you create, pattern interrupts, and how do you create countermeasures so that you don't repeat the same thing? So you can look back over the course of 1 month, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and look at the data that doesn't lie. And the data will tell you, are we evolving or are we regressing? Am I bringing out the best? Are we bringing out the best in each other, or are we not? Because what I've noticed a lot in relationships is people, when people are single, they're like, yeah, I'm the gym and I'm going to eat good. Let me get my 6-pack and let me get my all this, right? And they get into the relationship and they stop doing the thing that they were doing, and they get overweight and they get, Netflixed all night. And next thing you know, they got these bad habits, right? So I think for me and my wife, I'm dating her still, even though I'm married. It's always like, kind of like you, let's see how it goes. Like, I'm still winning her every day. She's still winning me every day. It's not a done deal. You know what I mean? And I think we sometimes stop doing that. We just stop winning each other. And I think we shouldn't. I think my opinion is like, I'm constantly winning her, showing her in it, like I'm dating for like the first time, and doing our best to not lose that spark. So there's a lot. That's a big question, and so I want to hear from the other man, but that's just my thoughts, and we can go obviously a lot deeper on that. But values, beliefs, morals, lifestyle, 4 bodies that I work on with everybody is spiritual, mental, emotional, physical alignment. All these things help to not have a relationship where you feel like, how do I talk to this guy? We're on 2 completely different pages right now, right? Like, how did he get there, right? Because it didn't start that way. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
I just want some clarity real quick. Did I hear you say that you write all that stuff down? Y'all got a
Yeah.
notebook?
No, well, we have a Google Doc. We have a shared Google Doc. And it's under Michael and Cindy's lifestyle relationship stuff. And we have all these documents that we visit. We visit them. We used to do it once a week. Right now we're doing it probably every couple of weeks. But we visit this to remind us, because as humans, we forget. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Dr. Casual Pitt over there. He's like, accountability, right? We forget. So that's why you get a mentor to hold you accountable. Me and my wife hold each other accountable, right? And we do it with love. We're not like, accountable with the hammer, but it's like, hey, am I showing up? Are you showing up? Are we showing up? And we call each other out daily. But we have a document that's a living, breathing document that reminds us of where we want to be in the future, who we need to be today to map out. And so we're constantly progressing and evolving together. And I feel that when you're evolving and you're putting in the work, life is just way better.
Wow. Benny, do you have a notebook?
Well, I don't have a notebook quite like that, but I loved what he was saying in the beginning. We was talking about how, like in the beginning, when you're single, you're hitting the gym, you're doing all these things, and as a fitness professional, like I kind of have to say like a link there. You were saying you still have your date nights. I tell my clients all the time, like when they have a certain goal in the gym and they want to achieve it, like all the work that you're doing to get to this point, you can't just stop. If you want to be able to continue to do it, everything you did to get to the goal, you have to keep doing, or else you're going to lose the ability. And I feel like it's a very similar way in a relationship. I say you should still, when you get married, it's not just you didn't win and then boom, it's over. You don't have to do the work anymore. All the work you did to get into the dating world, to find the person, to then get married to that person, you should still continue to date that person. Still keep doing the same work. Exactly. As I can see Cindy saying in the chat, it's a lifestyle. And that lifestyle, again, it is the same philosophy, whether, again, it's in your health in the gym or it's with you and your partner, that you have to keep putting in the work. And the work, it doesn't get easier per se, but you learned and you hit the lifestyle where you love to put that work in and you work together to build something better. Right? There's the way he worded it. Again, I almost want to get everyone's like socials after this, because I feel like this, I would love to have like a round table all the time with you guys. I've just been enjoying sitting here and hearing all of you.
Well, just to comment on what he said, I would totally agree. I coached for 30 years. And I used to always tell the kids, very simple: what you put into it is what you get out of it in life. There's good athletes, there's great athletes, and then there's elite. Well, the same thing about relationships. There's good relationships, there's great ones, and then there's elite ones. Well, if you want to be an elite athlete, that means living in excellence in every way, in every area, which requires a lot more work than the great athlete or than just the good athlete. But what you put into it is what you get out of it. And the matter, sometimes we as men don't put as much time as we need to emotionally and mentally, and then we kind of give up, or we're used to so many dysfunctional relationships. When we actually find someone that's great and we have to go to an elite level, we can't. And we have to make a decision. And that's sometimes what it comes down to. You have to make a decision. What exactly do you want to do? What do you really want? And if you really want it that bad enough, you got to work hard.
Yeah.
100%.
I wanted to add something to the conversation. I
Of
think
course.
that life gives us different experiences, and some of the things that I wrote down, especially around, what is healthy masculinity. When I think of, terminology like this, immediately what comes to mind is balance. I think that we can all agree what we're seeing in our government, politics, socially. A lot of people are missing balance, and if you're able to maintain balance, have a little bit old school, go back to the 90s a little bit, where, at one point in time, people wanted their children, their sons, their daughters to be well rounded, right? So you aren't, so far left, so far right, but you're really kind of in the middle. And I think in regards to relationships, the role that men play in relationships, whether it's marriages, with partners, with children, with friends, with people in community, it's a social emotional intelligence. I'm bringing us back to a lot of ideas from or ideals from our society, where when we think about intellect, we don't necessarily think about men. uh, you know what I see as a 20-year veteran educator, a lot of boys want to be athletic. They don't want to be smart. So how do you balance being like an Andre 3000, or very well rounded and in the arts and athletic, but also very intellectual? And I think that there's a struggle with how we allow people to show up in society, and especially in relationships. And to end on, 3 points: free will leads to acceptance. If we understand that every human has free will, then I can go into the mindset of, I'm building a relationship with you, not going into a relationship to control you, or kind of dictate how you should show up or how you should be. Willingness is a big part of making any type of relationship work, because it's a choice, and giving someone the autonomy to choose to be their best selves and allow them the opportunity to show up in that manner leads to the respect and engagement that a lot of relationships are missing. Because again, if I am listening so heavily to the outside world of how I should show up and how I should be, then a lot of times I'm not allowed to be my best self, or the best representation of myself for my spouse, my partner, or anyone else that's connected to me.
Yeah, y'all better preach today. Y'all better preach today. I am loving this. And I know that everyone is going to be blessed by these conversations because it's honest. Thank you guys for just being open and honest. And I'm going to test you all because I want to know what has been your failure points in relationships. Because if you all have been on my podcast, and some of y'all owe me some time on the podcast, I'm all about truth and honesty. So I'm gonna choose Dr. Pitt, because he ain't paying attention. And see, what has been your failure points in in relationships? Tell us all your business.
Well, I mean, there's stages to Dr. Pitts, right? There's the young Dr. Pitts, there's the middle-aged Dr. Pitts, and now I'm at that 40-year-old spectrum, right? So in my younger days, I was the one that, women would be my I would say, my kryptonite when I was younger, right? Immature, I think having the immaturity aspect of it is where, I failed at, not, again, not being mature. And then as I progressed, I developed selfishness, right? That was another where I embodied that, right? Being selfish, right? Now that I'm more mature, all of that stuff has progressed tremendously, right? I was married for 8 years. I'm no longer married anymore. So, it just, I think putting yourself in a position to always be willing to grow and to understand. I think one of the things where the reason why my marriage failed was going back to, I think what Jason even mentioned, just not adding in, and even what I put in the comment section, the approach. I think a lot of my downfall, my failure, was the way I approached certain things, right? And thank you for bringing it up. But that's pretty much now I know, right? Setting the stage, picking good times to avoid starting important talks with when either of you are stressed or distressed, right? And I think my approach, my timing of wanting to have a conversation wasn't in the right spectrum, right? And I failed at that. My approach was a failure approach. And I'll honestly say, when we go back to the topic of having a therapist, right? Mental health therapy. Like for me, I'm an advocate for, I believe everybody should have a mental health therapist to some degree, because can you elevate, right, in your areas of life? Mine was, me having a mental health therapist caused me to understand that, when things were overwhelming in my life, I needed somebody else to speak to, right? And I had great people around me, but they can only get you so far, right? So it's good to have a regimen of those individuals that are around you to kind of keep you in that space, in that place, which is the reason why LeBron James has lasted so long in the league, is because he invests into his body every year, right? And now, how do I level up? So I need somebody to help me with the free throws. I need somebody to help me with the 3-point shots, right? So having that mental health therapist as a component, adding that into your life, elevates you in areas where you felt like, wow, I thought I was great here. And that mental health therapist just pushes you just a little bit more. Same thing with a person with a coach in the gym, right? That coach in the gym is going to push you a little bit more. Yeah, you'll go to the gym and you'll work out on the treadmill, you'll work out on the weights, and you'll think that you had a great workout with being in the gym for an hour. But having a coach by your side is going to say, just give me 10 more. Just push a little bit more. So again, my failures definitely was my approach. And I think that your approach is everything, even to the young lady who asked that question. Approach that question, in a way to make a man feel comfortable. Because guys, honestly, approach equals care. And the acronym of care is the C creates a safe space. The A acts and causes you to have active listening. The R causes respect and honesty. And then the E is engaging in solutions together, right? So your approach is everything.
Don't make me call y'all out, because I feel like y'all. I'm gonna ask Benny. Benny, you're a married man.
I'm a married man.
What has been your failure point?
Honestly, like, I mean, it's not even just like in my marriage, but just like kind of like in all relationships, I guess would be like stonewalling. I have a horrible habit of when I'm dealt with like an emotional conversation of shutting down and not being able to speak, and needing the time to process before I'm able to have difficult conversations. And that's one of my issues. It's hard for me to take in, whether it's criticism or even positive. It's hard for me to take it in and respond without having time to kind of like reflect on it myself. It's always been one of my issues, which can create friction in any relationship, trying to have those important conversations. And the person's just kind of standing there, not speaking their truth or not being able to get the emotions out that they need to get out. And it's something that I've dealt with for a long time. And I try every day to get a little better at it. And I think in the 10 years that I've been dating my wife, that I've gotten better, and I work to be better at it in the future. So that way, hopefully, at some point, that will be a long memory of mine and not an issue that may still be happening.
Well, I'll piggyback off of what he just said. Time. I mean, I'm a business owner. I've been in this business for 34 years, and I'll go to work before I go on a date in a heartbeat. I'm sure, and cancel a date in a
Love
heartbeat.
it.
That might be, that's a downfall, but that's probably one of my pet peeves, or something dysfunctional. Um, that leads to probably, in my past, probably, what's the word? Um, I wouldn't say, the word would be, ah, I'm having a senior moment. That would not developing relationships, and then
Mhm.
it develops friends with benefits, because you don't have time to put down a serious conversation, spend time, and go out. For me, I work on weekends, so therefore date night is usually on weekends. Well, I'm working on weekends, so it's very hard to start a relationship with somebody, if you're working on weekends, and I'm usually free during the week. So it's just hard to have some consistency. So once I stop that pattern and stop having the friends with benefits, getting something more stable, something that I want to do, um, putting my career path together. See, I believe as men, if we build it, they'll come. If we build it mentally, emotionally, physically, economically, they'll come. But you have to build it. You have to give them something to come. You have to understand what their love language is for the type of woman that you want. I think a lot of men use the same exercise of meeting a woman on every woman. Every woman's different. Every woman has a different type of personality. They have a different type of career. So therefore, that same game is not going to work on every woman. So you have to learn what their personality is, learn their love languages. I always tease Ben. I said, you know all about where a guy went to high school, what stats he is, how many touchdowns, everything. But do you know your girlfriend's dress size? Do you know her shoe size? Do you know anything that would create a better love language with her? I think if you start there and getting things that she likes as opposed to what you like, that's a start. But you have to understand what her love language is and build off of there. Um, Once you start that, then I think, the path to success and relationships will open up and grow.
I want to piggyback off of that and say communication is key. Everybody, sometimes you think I'm a great communicator. I'm getting it out there. I'm saying how I feel, and it just goes me back to gentleness, right? It's your approach and how you communicate what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and also taking into consideration. Consideration is a big part of gentleness, that compassion, the consideration of what somebody else is thinking, what they want, what they desire, what they need. Taking that into consideration is a huge thing, for relationships, and being able to communicate that. It's an art to it, and you have to really put work into being intentional about the needs of someone else. I also want to just touch a little bit on the therapy spaces, and being in community a lot. I feel like it's good to go and sit on the couch, right, and be with the therapist. But I also think about in community, there have been communal spaces of therapy that we can continue to reach out to people. Bars, lounges, barbershops, employee break rooms, Bible study, school family nights have all been places where people have gathered, and they share what's going on, frustrations with wives, with husbands, with children, with work. Being able to have again a safe space to share these stories and also these experiences helps get people to that couch and sit with a licensed therapist, a life coach, or someone that's able to provide that mental health support. But I do want to just elevate some of the spaces that again provide us with therapeutic outlets, and a lot of times we don't even realize and see the power of those spaces where a lot of times people invest they invest their time.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
good.
I can jump in here too. I agree with Dr. Pitts. I think a lot of times timing is really important. I think personally, I wrote about it in the article you and I shared, Kadada, about this writing reflex. If I'm in a position when my wife comes to me with emotions, with issues, with stressors, and I just try to write it. I try to solve it. I try to fix it. I look at my partner as something to fix. And not all things need to be fixed. I'm there to absorb her emotions. I'm there to, brainstorm with her, to explore with her, to try to build her up, to empower her so she can figure out that problem, to, kind of supplement her processing of that problem. But I'm really not there to fix that problem. And if I'm bringing things forward to her, she's bringing things forward to me, and the timing isn't right. If she's prioritizing a problem, if I'm prioritizing a resentment, and I just throw it out there, and we're in the middle of doing something, and if I'm not ready for it, if she's not ready for it, our nervous systems just kind of tend to react. And the next thing you know, there's a conflict, there's an argument. So in my clinical care, we're really big on setting aside time. I'm also an acronym guy. I use LEAP, which is listening reflectively, empathizing, affirming, and partnering with your partner. And those are set aside times that they have to commit at least 60 minutes a week into that 90-minute time frame we always talk about to have communicative depth with your partner. But timing is a big part of this. I think when the partner isn't ready to have serious conversation, all of a sudden it's thrown into that person's priorities and they're not ready for it, there's a tendency to react to that, and the next thing you know, there's fighting going on. So not fixing each other is a big piece of that. Having the proper time to talk about serious problems, to partner with each other, and then to really, reflect and use empathy and listen to each other at the appropriate time, I think is really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. I think that's spot on, and I agree. And I'll say this from personal experience. Since 2015, I've been doing breakthrough sessions, which are basically deep dives into the upbringing of how my clients were raised. And it's a very powerful process. I'm not a clinical therapist, but I do deep therapeutic work, and I have been doing for the last 10 years, getting to that root cause and helping clients actually release the suppressed trauma that's been stored using timeline techniques and Gestalt therapy. And what I've discovered, when you go into their past, you'll see the way their memory, what they recall, shaped how they are in the present moment. And when you do that, you can help them see the patterns, the behaviors, the learned behavior that they learned for survival, for protection, for status, for success. And what that does is that gives them conscious awareness of what's been running their life unconsciously. And so that's that first step for them to be able to look at it and realize that they are not broken. They have learned behavior that's either working or not working for them. Now, when you bring that to the relationship, I teach NLP, which is basically communication at a very high level. And according to John Gottman, which is the guru when it comes to relationships, 30-something years studying and whatnot, he's discovered that communication is not the most important thing. It's actually emotional intelligence. And the reason why is it was already expressed here is because when you're emotionally triggered, your communication is out the door. So emotional intelligence helps communication at a very high level. So what I realized is that when it comes to understanding your partner, understanding how to navigate these things, yes, timing is important, because if I'm in an argument with my wife and I'm emotionally triggered and I can see that she is, at that point, it is our baggage that's talking, our hurt, our little wounded boy and girl, and that will lead to a worse argument that night. So we shut down, we stop. I would say, let's take a break. And then we'll both go back. We both talked about this. So we both do this. We go back and we both look at what came up for me and what was my role. And so that when I come back to her, it's like, hey, and we don't label, we describe behavior. You know what I mean? So you describe the actual behavior of what I did. She describes my behavior. I describe her behavior. So I say, when you did this and you said this and this is what you did, what came up for me, that's where I get to be vulnerable, and she gets to hold the space, is I felt like nothing I say matters. Boom. And then she'll say, what came up for me is like, you don't care and you don't love me, right? So now we have that open dialogue without blaming each other, and we're being honest about each other. Now we know how to move forward and realize that that was just the wound that came up, and an opportunity to heal the wound so that we can let it go. So then we do the emotional release, let it go, realizing that it's not the person, it's the behavior triggered this emotional response that now we get to work through. And so those are the things that we do that we've worked through things throughout the years. So the relationship, that's the hard part, right? Because that is the uncomfortable conversation that you have to have. But what you get as a result of that is a beautiful partnership that now you're aligned energetically. Now you're bringing, you feel more aligned. So what I've realized is that in my life values, right? Because we all have life values. We have relationship if you're in one or single. You have career, you have your health and fitness. Career is money. You got family, you got spirituality, you got personal development. Those are the big life areas, and we hierarchy those values. So, for example, the gentleman who's like, I haven't had a relationship for 8 years, right? So his relationship value is probably at the bottom, right? His career is number one. My relationship value is at the highest. It's number one. I put it number one because I realized, because I before my career value was number one. Without my relationship value, when we are not, because she's also my business partner. So we're married, we're lovers, we're friends, we're business partners, and we spend literally 24 hours a day every day. So if her and I are not aligned energetically, emotionally, the business doesn't do well. So it'd be stupid for me to put the business first, right? So I thought about this, right? No, I put the relationship first, because when that's working, everything else is working. The kids are working, the family's working, the health and fitness is working. Because when we're fighting, I don't even, I'm feeling mad. I don't even want to go to the gym. I can't sleep. I'm like bothered because there's this unrest, right? And what some people do is they normalize that shit, right? We don't normalize it. There's something here that we need to resolve. And it's not me fixing her, it's not her fixing me, it's us moving forward and finding the solution to not just get through that, but evolve through that in a better way so that we don't repeat that. And I think if you just do that over and over, at least I know because we've done this. When I do this over and over, when I've coached my clients to do this with their client, with their spouses, I've coached men who were demasculated by their women, and I had to teach them to get the balls back out of the jar that she was holding, but yet she's sending him to me, right? So all these things happening, right? Because people aren't doing sometimes having those conversations and willing, hear me out, willing to be able to lose the person in order to gain them. And my wife and I, she's right here next to me, and we both are in agreement. We have to be willing to lose to win. Because if we're not, we'll never have that conversation. That's uncomfortable. And some people avoid it because I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose him. I don't want to, it's not that I want to lose her, but if I don't risk the uncomfortable conversation, if she doesn't risk it, we won't be able to show up as the best version of ourselves. And there's so much fear of rejection, of losing. I'll never find another person. I'll be single. I'll be this. I'll be that. Right? I don't have that fear. If she leaves, she leaves. And I pick up and I move on. If I leave, she picks up and she moves. And we both understand that. There's no like, oh my God, I can't live without you. There is, we're better together and we are great together. And you'd be great without me and I'll be great without you, but we're great together. Right. So there's a lot of reality check. I think like reality, we're very tuned into reality, right? Not delusional. I think people bring fantasies and all this and thing that they want, and it doesn't allow them to see what's right in front of them, because the person that ends up one day being a nightmare was a nightmare the whole time. It just was camouflage. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my take on that.
Benny, I understand that we are heading to a video, so we just need to queue up your robot. Are we ready for a video? And just to set the stage, I just want to let you all know, everyone following us and watching us, I just want to say that we're going to have a video posting right now for everyone to watch. And so I'm going to allow Vinny to take the lead in garnering all kinds of reactions there. And so, Yoruba, when you can, let's go ahead and run that video.
Women have leveled up in a way that makes them less dependent on men, right? They've got the degrees, the careers, the homes, the friendships, the freedom, the creative pursuits, the pets, the plans, all of it. And they built it themselves. They don't need men the way society used to force them to center men in their lives in order to have access to things they now create for themselves. Women are fucking driven go-getters. We love to see it. So now these women only want to be with men who can provide emotional depth, intimacy, partnership, actual listening skills, accountability, enthusiasm for growth, and a playful sense of humor. If men want to be chosen, they have got to show up with actual skills. For men, I think it's exposing a real insecurity that's always been inside of us, that we secretly know relationally we don't bring much to the table, and that we've heavily relied on two things for a long time: that you need us to get access to shit, and that unfortunately for the majority of women out there, you're attracted to our man bodies. We've been fucking cruising on that sweet, sweet combo of access and dick. Like, hey babe, I might be emotionally unavailable and allergic to accountability, but check out my broad shoulders and the fact that I can sign a mortgage. That free ride is over, sad, and I hate to sound like such a fucking therapist, but what an opportunity for growth, my guys. If you choose to grow, you will find yourself in a relationship with a woman who doesn't need to be with you, but purely wants to be with you just because you're a cool dude with real depth and humility. That's an actual, real, secure relationship. And because there are so many insecure, dumb fuck, manosphere, Joe Rogan wannabes, it has never been easier to be an attractive man by simply choosing to grow the fuck up. Turns out the real high value man is just emotional availability.
Vinny, your thoughts?
I actually did not see video play. My screen was you the entire time.
Oh, well, I'm so gorgeous. Did anyone see the video?
Yeah, I saw it.
I saw it. And I got
Everyone saw it except for Vinny, which is
Maybe because I'm in a
hilarious.
co-host position. I don't know. I was
Well, I would love to hear. So, Vinny, did you hear what it said though?
no. It was my screen was silent and it was just on your camera.
Oh, well, I
So
guess you wanted to look
my
at me.
apologies.
Guess you just wanted to look at me today. It's all good. But
I mean,
I
like,
would
it's
love.
okay. My reaction's a little different now.
Yeah. I would love to know, Zach, what are your thoughts about that? As what you're seeing from a clinical, I mean, what you're seeing with people coming and sitting on your couch or sitting on their couches.
I think
chatting.
there's some broad generalizations in there, but I think I think his points were solid. I don't know if they were a little crass for me and not well articulated, but I think I get what he was saying. I think again we had talked about this, Kadani, you and I. Now that I think most marriages, the wife is working full time. She's contributing financially to the home. It's not this traditional role anymore where like the man is out working and the woman is staying home and taking care of the children. I think that's been long gone for quite some time. So I do feel that there are financial partnerships within marriages today that are very important. And I don't want to speak generally for all relationships, but I do know like most Americans, especially in this economy, there are two people working within the home. And that's that is sometimes a point of contention. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it works really well. I really think that is important what the person was saying in that video, though, that men, I truly, in my work, I truly want to communicate to them, though, that it is okay to be vulnerable and to provide that depth of emotion, that depth of partnership emotionally. A lot of our panelists tonight have talked about emotional intelligence. being firm in our masculinity, and therefore we're okay to be vulnerable. We're all okay to cry, to seek emotional nurturing from our partners, from our wives, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that is a really great sense of the term masculinity. That's what the individual was saying in the video. That as equal partners financially to the home, we are there to be best friends. We are there to explore each other emotionally. I love what Michael was saying about trying to win his wife. So much of the Gottman School, as he was mentioning, is like these minimal encouragers. What we're doing with our partners throughout the week, to demonstrate to them that we're prioritizing them when they're not around, that we're initiating contact with them, we're communicating niceties and kind and sweet things to them. We're being romantic from a distance. We are trying to really get them to understand that they don't even have to be around us. We have an intuition about them. We want to, create a situation within our marriages that our partners are well aware that when they're not there, they are on our minds, and they are the priority, and they are being prioritized and honored. And we just can't wait to get them back home and get them in our arms. I think that is extremely important.
Kadada, I'm going to jump in here because I believe that I heard the points that the gentleman said on the video, right? But I think, and you probably heard me go over this a little bit, but there's a difference between a masculine man and an alpha male, right? So a masculine man, I think that's where, we just need to structure that, because the masculine man seeks growth and connection, whereas the alpha male seeks dominance and control, right? The masculine man leads with empathy, whereas the alpha male leads with authority. The masculine man it understands comfortability and vulnerability, whereas the alpha male hides vulnerability, right? The masculine man builds others up, whereas the alpha male competes and compares. The masculine man values respect and trust, whereas the alpha male values status and power. And of course, we can even keep going on and on, but the masculine man practices humility, where the alpha male prioritizes ego, right? So I think when we structure that, then we start to add in everything else, when you're speaking to the man, because I'm 100% a masculine man, and I don't need to shape shift, right? When I walk into a room, people already know, like, he gotta be somebody, right? Because I'm carrying that masculinity. I don't have to voice it. But then when I open up my voice, it's like there's a calmness, right? It's like, yo, whatever he's talking about, or like whatever he's saying, like he's on point, right? So I think when you kind of structure the framework of what that gentleman was saying, you can understand it a little bit more. So hopefully that set the stage for even the viewers that are watching So that's kind of my take on it.
I think about good, sound relationship, advice, things that people want to know. People, need to know different things to help them to be successful in any type of relationship that they're engaging in. And I think the biggest thing, the best thing that any of us can do is to be in control of ourselves. Because at the end of the day, being married to, being in a relationship with someone, even having children, it's not an ownership. You don't own any individual. The only person you can truly control, you know, really influence, change mindset is yourself. I think it starts with us and the expectations that we have for how we want to show up, uh, and how we want to be engaged with people. When I think about relationships, especially marriages, it comes with compromise. Again, understanding that what is the end game? What do I want? I feel like so many times people are trapped in situations where they don't feel comfortable being who they are, expressing, their needs. This takes me back to something that I teach my middle school students. In order for you to be a healthy and whole human being, male, female, or indifferent, you have to be able to articulate what you want, what you don't want, what you need, what you don't need, what you like, what you don't like, so that you know how to navigate in spaces. And I feel like in relationships, people go in with so many notions of this is what I believe a perfect relationship is, a perfect wife, or perfect husband, a perfect spouse is. And a lot of times people forget that there is no perfection. We all are imperfect humans. And the beauty of life is being able to navigate that and allowing people to have their agency to, truly show up and be themselves. I think it also is something that we haven't really touched a huge, deal on this evening is unconditional love. A lot of relationships are built on conditional love. When you fell in love with your fiance, or whether it's your husband or your wife, you know, that person was a good representation of that time and space. But people change, people grow, they evolve. And sometimes in relationships, we get so hung up on who the person was when we first met them, or the vision of the person that we have. And a lot of times we want them to be that forever, and they're not that. People change. So being able to give, I'll end on this. The grace that we give our sports teams, like I'm a Falcons fan, the grace that we give our sports teams should be the same grace that we give our spouses when they don't meet the mark, when they aren't who we want them to be or show up in the way we want them to show up. We still show up for them and build that love. So we take that same, love we have for our sports teams when they don't do what needs to be done, they don't win, they don't make the mark, but we still are faithful. We still show up in our jersey for all of that. We go to 9. I think that if people apply that to relationships, it'll really help people to grow and evolve.
See, I'm from Philadelphia, man. I don't think we had the same type of attitude you guys have in
Yeah,
Atlanta.
I was gonna say I'm an Eagles fan. I don't know if my wife wants that kind of love.
It's a powerful love. You can't. I think in a relationship you want that kind of powerful love. Kind of building on what we've all been saying is that I think one of the big one of the things that people don't really understand is they always kind of the misconception that it's 50-50 in a relationship. Ideally it's 50-50 in a relationship, but honestly speaking, like there's going to be sometimes in relationships it's 70-30, 80-20, 90-10. As long as when you're together, you're both getting it to 100. There's always going to be times when one person may have to be doing more, the other person when they're down. And there's going to be times when you have to support each other because that's what we're there for. And as long as we're all of us now, we talk about marriages and being the importance of the relationship, making sure that we're getting that 100%. And I guess we're kind of to keep further on this. I believe we have another panelist with us. So why don't we bring in Philip? I believe, right, Philip?
Yep, I've got a microphone off. You can hear me?
I can hear you, Philip.
Okay. Can I stop writing the comment that was starting to go into page 3? I'd love to share something because what I was starting to write about was that not only do people change when they meet a new person, after having met a new person, but when we meet someone, we're only getting to see 50% of who they are. So they might show us their honesty and trustworthiness and sanity and attractiveness, etc. But over time, we're also going to discover that they have matching dishonesty that goes along with their honesty, equal parts. They're just as untrustworthy as they are trustworthy. And it's true for every single one of us. We are as self-sufficient as we are needy. We're as disgusting as we are appealing. We're as sick as we are healthy. And bit by bit, the pieces that weren't visible at the beginning, in both of the partners, become visible. So the two people 6 months into a partnership or 12 months into a partnership are very different people in one another's eyes from the people who were presenting to each other at the very beginning. And it's the ability to embrace and I heard the word unconditional acceptance or unconditional love being used. That's what allows us to stay in relationship. that ability to be fully aware of how, when I see a part of my shadow in another person, I go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. They're doing the same thing for me. And if I attribute my reason for going into fight, flight, or freeze is because they're that way, rather than because I have a reaction when I see parts of my shadow, I'm going to push them away from me. And I'll stop there before it turns into a long lecture.
No worries. But real quick, Phil, do you mind introducing yourself and giving a little bit of background for everyone in the audience here?
Yeah, let me slide that across it. My name's Philip Bear. I'm living in near Victoria in British Columbia, and for over 10 years I've been doing something called behavioral loop therapy, which I was taught by someone who, after I'd been in 20 years of counseling, took me to a place when we did 20 years of counseling equivalent in a single week of retreat. And I've since moved my practice into mediation and into working with organizations and corporations to try and help people create psychological safety in their workplaces.
That's great. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. One thing that I've kind of noticed as a theme overall is like a lot of us have we have really great tools that because we're here for a reason as panelists and hosts. But I know a lot of people, and kind of one of the reasons we're here is to talk about the men and women who aren't in relationships and the struggles that they're currently facing in today's world. So I was gonna kind of lead this question to Zach. What do you feel like in today's world is like kind of like the misconceptions that a lot of people are having, or like expectations that are unrealistic that men and women are now facing, and that what we know how to handle, but due to kind of social media and everything else going on, there's that kind of this warped reality that is happening.
I can speak to a lot of the younger men I work with. These are men mid-20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s who aren't in relationships yet. A lot of men that come to me, unfortunately, have attachment issues with their biological father. Their biological father, in some way, shape, or form, either was absent or was present in their life and, abused them in some capacity, emotionally, physically, condemned maybe some kind of emotions or demonstrations of personality or certain interests against these boys as they were growing up. And, they get to me, and the biggest question that I get is, how do I become more self-confident? How do I connect with people? How do I talk to people? A lot of men that I work with, you would assume, like I think most of us, because we're in these spaces and we talk so much, it comes very naturally to us, like interpersonal skill and emotional intelligence. But for a lot of men that I work with, that's not a skill that some men have. They don't even know how to have regular conversation with coworkers. They don't know how to approach a woman or what to talk about, how to talk about certain things. They feel like they don't even have much to talk about. So what I try to do with them, it's very much rooted in acceptance and commitment therapy, is get them to really identify what their values are. The spark that kind of made them feel alive when they were younger, the things that they were interested in, what they look to in other people that they really value, what their role models give them, if they do have any male role models, what are those values? And then those values then become kind of like the bedrock of their personality. And then we do a lot of work on daily alignment to those values through behavior. Our values, or our hierarchy of values, are what makes us us. And if we can perfect our alignment to those values, we tend to become more self-confident, especially in the self-care space. Men who I really have them kind of like perfect that self-care, how routine they are, and when they sleep, what they eat, how much they work out, do they journal, do they pray, how well does their home environment look, how well do they take care of themselves hygienically. If they focus in their attention, they become masters at their self-care. They begin to be very improving their confidence. And once we become more confident, we have a good understanding of who our values are. We have a pathway to connect to the system. But it really has to start with self-empowerment through discipline and consistency on how we align to our personal values. One of the top ones being our self-care.
Thank you. Anyone want to add anything before we kind of develop more into this? Nah, it's all good. So you were saying building, building a routine, building the tools. Philip, like with men today, with like if we don't have these tools, what kind of cost do you think this can give to a person? Like not being able to emotionally express yourself and not be able to like, realistically go into like the relationship world. What kind of negativity do you think and or we're facing, and what type of effects do you think that has on men today?
My starting point, and it's based on something called the still face experiment that many of you will be familiar with, where we observe what happens when a young child is put in a situation where they're not able to restore connection with their parent in a laboratory situation because the parent has been instructed not to engage with them. And the child within seconds goes into extreme duress, because what it means for them to not be able to connect is that they have no idea that they're ever going to be connected with another person again. And we all carry that trauma because our parents, no matter how brilliant they were as parents, were not always available for us. They were taking care of other children. They were doing other things that they couldn't be available. So we have PTSD, like every single living human being has PTSD from when their parents weren't available to them when they were tiny kids. And the PTSD comes back up every time we're in a situation where we're seeking connectedness with someone who matters to us and that person can't respond. And if there isn't such a person, that leaves us in a state of the same kind of pain that that little kid had when they had no one to connect with. So what it's going to do to a person is the quality of the loneliness is going to be equivalent to the pain that a person feels when they're hit over the head or when they're injured in a way that causes bleeding. Like there's actual pain associated with isolation, with disconnection, with the inability to have agency to bring people into engagement or to not have a supportive community around us. I'm not sure if I answered all of the piece of the question, but
No,
it's
it's great.
opportunity for others to jump off on that.
Like, I've always heard that there is not a single person alive who hasn't experienced trauma. So like, the way you said, like everyone basically has PTSD just from the unfortunacy of needing their parents and not having it. I think that was really well said. Sorry, get out. I think I was cutting you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I appreciate that. I just want to be able to head into the chats real quick and just say we are seeing your chats, and I've already confessed I can't see much because I'm blind over here doing this on my phone. But I kind of expanded just a little bit to see that Dr. Pitt said that one of the unrealistic expectations is expecting to be each other's top priority. And I find I'm a little curious how the rest of you all feel about that, because that's kind of diametrically opposed to what has been said in the chat. And I also want to say that as we are talking about men and men coming into therapy and them being disconnected, I think women want to know, are we ever the priority? Are we ever the priority? Because it seems like men want them, for us as women, to be our top priorities, but women aren't their top priorities. So, any thoughts on that?
I think it's tricky when you use the word priority, and that was my comment inside of the chat. You know, who we prioritize in our lives shouldn't be based on rank, but relationship. And we have to be realistic. I know, people subscribe to different beliefs, but there's biblical scripture that says, you should take up your house and be separate from your parents and your siblings, and only be beholden to your wife, only focus on your wife, only show love, to your wife. I think people go to extremes because that's not realistic. You mean to tell me that I'm not going to maintain a relationship with my siblings or my friends or my parents or my grandparents? And it's just not realistic. I see a lot of people in relationships that, and again, you have to do what works for you, but prioritizing, someone, it also goes into a sense of like worshiping them and putting them above, you know, others. And it really, just kind of makes me think, how can you really prioritize, someone over so many others that you have in your life? It's a very interesting uh, point, and I think that it is an unrealistic expectation for anyone to think that you are my top priority. And being in my early 40s, I see this with a lot of my classmates who have aging parents, and it causes issues. And I'm paraphrasing the Bible, so please, those who are Bible thumpers, because I don't have my please. Now I can go there, but I don't want to go there. I'm paraphrasing, so please be able to use that and decipher that. But the point that I'm making is, life happens to all of us, and what we're seeing in our 40s is with aging parents, that does become the priority. That doesn't mean that I don't love my spouse or vice versa. But my priority right now is making sure that my aging parents have what they need. And that is a challenge in relationships, because when you are in a marriage, there are a lot of times where your spouse feels like, well, I should be the top priority over everything. And I just want to be honest about that if it works for you, great. But it's just not a realistic factor for anyone to be your sole priority all the time. You can't prioritize your children over your wife or your siblings or your spouse. I just wanted to give insight to that, because priority is used as a way to value um, relationships, and it's kind of like a slippery slope.
Oh, it looks like we've got a guest on. It looks like we have a guest on. So wait, actually, Dr. Pitts, go ahead. I think that
I
you
just wanted
you
to
can.
just dive in because I posted it, right, and thank you,
Yeah.
Jason. That's exactly why I believe I put it out there as unrealistic expectation, and it does not mean that you are not a priority, because that's how Kadala preferenced it, right? So there's a difference, top and A. 100%, you should be a priority, but
Right.
because of life and the situation and circumstances, certain days there are things that will be top priority, and you may not be that top priority, which goes back to I can't remember. We can bring up all the speakers. I want to reference his name because he made mention of that with him and his wife. Can we, Michael? He talked about having the time capsule. He dates his wife, right? So on the days that they date, trust and believe wife is top priority, because it's, you guys, compartmentalization is real, right? And Jason mentioned this earlier, balance, right? When there's balance infiltrated into your daily life and of activity, it can become easy to compartmentalize things, which gives you the tab levels of what is the top priority today, and then the communication with the individual that you're with. When you guys can communicate that amongst one another, then your significant other doesn't have to worry about all the time with being top priority, but understanding that I am a priority because that has been communicated amongst the two. So I digress.
I think it looks like we have Big Brother Luther on from all the way from Thailand. Luther
Yes, can
Jones.
everybody hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're good.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to say that great conversation. I want to say to my married brothers that a relationship is a partnership. And so when we come to our partner and say that this is a problem, how can we handle it? It becomes a different dynamic and a different conversation. So really then about priority, it's about this is what bothers me, my family needs, my mother, my father, how can we help? And that's what that gives buy-in. I hope that's what you were saying. I'm getting quiet here.
There you go. I'm sorry. I'm loving your tagline though.
I love it.
Right.
Okay,
I thought somebody had a question, but apparently, like, because that's what I was saying. Somebody said they had a question for me live, but I didn't get that. But did I misunderstand that?
I think you did. I think you did. I think Max wanted you to ask a question, or if you had a particular statement or question that you wanted to ask the panelists.
Yeah, I did, and I do think like that Dr. Jason answered it, and Zach did is or approached it is that what we see in today is I give Stephen A. Smith as an example. This uh, attitude of indifference towards Black women in his situation that have taken on leadership roles, that have established the liberty to express themselves. We see this red pill, as they call it, where we no longer, as men, want to listen to opinions that are outside of the masculine realm. And what do you all think is driving that? I see that men have taken a lead and to establish themselves and define themselves, and I'm great with that. But if it leads to where we no longer listen, is that a good thing?
What's the question?
I mean, yeah. Are you
The
saying that as men don't listen to women? Is that?
Yes, because what I'm saying is that when I use the Stephen A. Smith as an example, is rather than listening to what women have to say, we are then denigrating them. We are dismissive of them. Is that what masculinity is? Because that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I'll dive into that. I mean, I mentioned I went over the parables of masculinity and alpha male, right? I think that's an alpha male's perspective. If they're diminishing, because again, when we go over the attributes that a masculine man carries, one of those attributes is definitely having the willingness, the understanding, the ability to listen, to absorb, and to process, to properly either determine whether or not and even get clarity on am I just listening to what you're saying, or are you looking for me to respond? And if so, how would you like me to respond? Again, it all boils back down to even when Jason was saying communication, right? So as an alpha male, absolutely that would be how they would respond. But from a masculine man, understanding to listen, to be able to process appropriately and properly. So that's my take on it.
Right. And with all due respect, I consider myself an alpha male, and I don't ascribe to what you just said because I do listen.
So,
I
all
think
right.
it's important to generalize people as well. I just go back to a lot of the lessons that I've not only learned from the men in my life, but also lessons that, I share in my book, Suit, Swag, and Success. A lot of the lessons I taught to my students about how we show up, how we are intentional about, building relationships. I also would tell my young ladies that you play a major role in the outcome of how these young brothers are going to turn out to be men, just by the way that a lot of times, we hear the conversations around toxic masculinity, but I can also recall seeing women saying men don't cry, boys don't cry. You're trying to hug your friend, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't be empathetic. So again, I always challenge women and say, now you are saying that you want someone to listen, right? Now, the hard conversation that we don't want to accept and realize is that everybody plays a role in this. So when women are saying that, oh, I want you to be this and I want you to be strong, and now you're telling them that, well, I don't want you to be nurturing or like compassionate or to listen because I've said that I want you to be these things. And so I'm sharing this because I give young girls and women agency to realize that you also play a role in the things that men do to make them quote unquote feel, you know, what masculinity is supposed to be. I'll end on this and say that masculinity in our political world and our society is being used to confuse the masses into the different ways that men can actually show up in relationships. And I think it goes back to, again, some of the things that we know are not associated with qualities of what men would display in relationships, which is being, again, nurturing, listening, understanding all of the things that emotional intelligence would provide. These, again, are things that both men and women have spoken against, quite frankly, into what we want to truly see in regards to healthy masculinity.
I agree with you. I
Thank
agree.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Luther, for your question. I believe Jamie is up next with her question or
You do.
comment.
I was just trying to, I have noticed, and here's the question for all of you. When Yellowstone came out a few years ago, it seems like there's been a return of old-fashioned masculinity. Men are now wearing mustaches again. They're becoming more like men from the 70s, the old westerns, things like that. They seem to have gone away as far as we had that trend of exploring your feminine side, and but have you guys noticed that there is a return of like old school masculinity?
Oh, I guess
Or
I'll
have
speak
I?
on it. So let
Okay.
me make sure I understand. So I'm not too sure what the Yellowstone is a series, right? It's like
Yeah.
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 I never watched it, so I can't. But I've seen it, I think, but I haven't watched it, so I'm not sure. But I'm speaking to when you say old school masculinity. It's so part of the problem, like, is when we have these like, oh, masculine, alpha, where we generalize, right? And
Right.
generalization means we use words and we generalize everything to fit on a category. So we'd have to define what does old school mean first, right? Based upon your understanding of old school, because we each may have a different understanding of old school. That's one. When it comes to masculine and alpha, okay, feminine, masculine, it's just basically saying
Right.
men and women. That's all it's saying. A healthy man, a
Right.
healthy woman. Alpha is different. Alpha is considered like in the animal kingdom. They'll be like there's an alpha of the pack, meaning a
Right.
leader, usually more dominant, the one that asserts authority. So that's where that kind
Right.
of concept of alpha came in, right? And everything else is all what we want to make it mean, right? So, and what we want to make it mean is based upon your understanding of the word and the definition that each person gives a word. So I want to kind of set that because it's words in communication is 7%. Tone is 38 and body language is 55, which means the word doesn't tell us anything until we get the complex equivalence, the definition of the word. And when you use strong words like alpha, masculine, sex, war, hate, love, even unconditional love, right? There's a whole interpretation that we all have for those words, right? And then I think that's what happens sometimes when we try to communicate. We assume when I say the word, the other person knows exactly what I'm talking about, which we don't know, because unless you really get into that person's understanding and how they were raised and what they were taught that word means. Even though we have a dictionary, we can all Google the word, but
Right.
we don't really remember usually the dictionary thing because we have definitions, right? So when you say
Right.
old school masculinity, right? It depends. I can say old school could be my dad, right? Could be my grandfather. So I wanted to just throw that back out there. Can you tell me what old school means to you, so
Old
I can
school to
better answer
me,
the question?
more like as if the man is the provider and the protector, and his job is to care for his family and his woman, and
Awesome.
not her being as dependent on being self-sufficient. He is there
Mm,
to provide for that family and take on, the tough exterior and take on the hardship
yeah.
to ease her life, you know.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of what I
Yes.
was getting at.
I love it. See, that gives me more context, right? And I can work with that. So earlier on,
Right,
when I was sharing, I'm not sure if you caught the beginning, I was breaking down a couple key elements of what I've considered to be like a healthy man, right? And it's what you're
right,
describing right now. It is
right,
somebody who can be strong, courageous, resilient, and
right.
and
Not
but
an
doesn't
alpha male.
but doesn't use that to suppress or dominate people or women,
Exactly,
right? It's
exactly.
instead it's the strength that protects, uplifts, and creates safety for others.
Right.
It could include their partner, right? So yes,
Mhm.
when and we know this because women have come on. I've seen many podcasts when men provide that component, women and they feel right because we're driven by two different things. Predominantly, men are driven through status, going out and gaining more things, and we're driven by things like logic, um, goals, hunt, gathering. Women are predominantly driven by protection. They seek to be protected because they hold babies, right? And so
Right.
when we offer as men that safety, that strength, but yet the safety and the kindness and the love and the compassion, the vulnerability, women can really step into a powerful version of themselves. Now, but the video earlier was talking about women who have become that because men have kind of let them down and haven't stepped in. And so women have become,
Right.
well, CEOs and businesswomen. I got my own money and I don't need a man. But the more and more you talk to women, because this has been going on for years now, they're burnt out. They're like, we don't want that.
Women are tired.
Yeah, we
Women are
can
very
do that.
tired.
Sure, we can do that as women, right? And you have,
Hmm.
and that's not really what's driving them. They want to be nurtured, they want to be protected, they want to be taken care of. It's just how it is, right? And so now we're
Hmm.
coming. I think that's what you're seeing is this balance is kind of coming back, right? Where men are going, okay, it's
Right.
time for us to step back into our role, but do it kindly, lovingly, not dominantly, not suppressing women, right? Because now women have gotten their
Hmm.
rights. We got this kind of right thing going on. Awesome. And now let's get back to the harmony of how God created us to be. Right. So anyway, that's my take. I'd love to hear the other gentleman's take on that.
Piggyback off that, Michael. I think it's a great question. For Kanata and I had to have this conversation before. I think a lot of men in their marriages, they desperately want to be leaders and they want their wives to elevate them to the role of leader of their family where they are providing and protecting. The unfortunate thing is a lot of times they go about it wrong. A lot of times there's a demand placed. And when the wife brings the emotional situations or the emotional messiness of her life to her man and he doesn't know what to do with it, he
Right.
rejects it, he tries to fix it, he pushes back on it, he wants to not validate it. That is when the problems, at least under my clinical care, seem to happen. I wrote this in the article recently about how do we as men who want to have a traditional leadership role within our marriages and in our families earn the right of that position. We have to earn that position through the heart space with our wives. We have to be able to absorb the emotion. We have to be able to explore with our wives. We have to be there to not just fix problems or push back on the messiness of that emotion. We have to be there to be, to earn that trust and to earn the right to be the leader by earning the trust. My wife would often say to me, I don't trust you with my emotions. I don't trust you with my heart. How could you ever lead me? And it was at that time when we did our own marriage therapy where I had to learn communication techniques. I had to learn to meet her where she was at in her heart. I had to learn to absorb her emotions, not just seek to fix them. I had to help her explore those and be there in a supportive capacity and give her all to be a sounding board until she was able to process through those things and become empowered in those things. And once I did that, she naturally rose me to the rank of leader in our marriage and in our home. And it was a wonderful thing. So usually in my clinical care, that's my angle in terms of trying to get men who desire to be leaders in their home. But first they have to earn the heart space and earn the honor of those emotions with their wives.
And if I can come in here, I'm going to throw in things that may not be in consensus, because the way that I perceive it, from a historical perspective, particularly for people who came out of European cultures, and the dominant culture now that's kind of European, predominantly European derived, that all of that with emancipation of women has shifted things to a situation where we have no idea how to work because there are no precedents. I believe that it's fantastic that women are as empowered as they are. And I'm so grateful that the powerful woman, and I've been in serial relationships for 25 years. So I've met some incredibly empowered and wonderful women. And I wouldn't want to diminish what they bring to the world in any way whatsoever by wanting to assert any dominance in any way in relation to the person that I'm with. I simply believe that we need to learn how to coexist where there are no precedents in, certainly in our historical cultures. So we're learning. We're learning what happens when you've disturbed that balance that's existed for millennia, is certainly in the Western cultures, and where we're digging around looking to see what happens when a woman becomes so empowered that a man needs to take a back seat in certain areas, like possibly earning, that's traditionally been a male domain. But there's nothing inherently, from my perspective, inherently wrong with that, but it does challenge us to reimagine our ways of being with one another. And I feel like I've developed the tools that make it possible when I'm working with my clients to examine what's happening in the interactions. Like, what there are two important emotions that are going on in any relationship at any particular time, and one is the element of fear, that we're afraid of the person becoming further apart from us, or becoming too close, um, and smothering us. But we're afraid of a million different things, and we need to work with those fears to bring our relationship to something where we learn to be safe with the way that the other person is being, and with fear being one thing, power being the other. How do we bring it to a place where we get to a power balance that satisfies both partners without diminishing either of them? And again, this is a good time for me to be quiet because that introduces a lot of new things.
All right, Zach, I have one more question. So I've heard that there has been a rise in suicide amongst men due to the fact that women are self-sustainable. I mean, we are earning our own thing. We're running our business. We don't need a man to be. We're not dependent on a man. And men are finding, where do they fit in that role then? Where do they fit in the role for women?
Well, I think the rise in suicide and the suicide statistics, it's very diverse for men. It's not, I don't think, singularly dependent upon the relationships. I mean, predominantly, men are more likely to be homeless, to be in prison. They're more likely to be in debt. Like, there's a lot of, I think, factors that are driving male suicidality, but you also have to look at females too. If you look, if the data that came out of COVID was a lot of, especially young females nowadays, in terms of the rates of mental health crises, self-injurious behavior, suicidal thinking, and suicidal actions, in terms of a certain demographic. I'm talking like younger females, adolescent females into young adults. I just think that in general, we're a very disconnected society. Males and females who are under my care seem to be so far disconnected in terms of just the dating nowadays and how dating and courting is done. And it's very like, seeing someone's face, hitting like a like or a swipe, and then having to kind of go through this like awkward text message routine, and then potentially meeting somebody in person. It's very impersonal. And I hear a lot of complaints from both males and females under my care about how disconnected they feel in that space, and finding it hard to just meet people and meet the right person for them, and not have to put on a show to have a like clicked or their picture clicked on one of these dating apps. I think a lot of that is kind of contributing to this disconnect I think most of us feel with how rapid our technology has overtaken most areas of our lives. But yeah, there definitely mental health, suicidal thinking, suicidal ideation. A lot of that is on the rise. And I do feel it's mostly because of how disconnected we are. I don't necessarily know if it's relational. I think it's just a lot going on. We have the economics. We have a lot of things that are AI, not being able to find jobs. So there's a lot of things that I hear, and with people under my care, of what may be driving some of these tendencies and these data points.
That's a great point. And it's a bigger question than men solely. The interesting thing when I was looking at it is that the data is saying that women attempt suicide more often, but men follow through. That's what I just Googled right here, and it was saying that. So so what is it? Is it just because men are following? It's saying that women attempt suicide more often than men. The ratio is approximately 3 female suicide attempts for every 1 male attempt. So again, I think the problem is what's causing humanity to want to commit suicide. And one thing is like, well, like the question was, is it because women are more successful and don't need men? I think it's a bigger question that goes deeper than just that. I think exactly what you were saying, Zach, which is disconnection from self, disconnection from purpose, disconnection from spirit, disconnection from your own mental health, your own ability to handle your own problems, stress, overwhelm, drugs, alcohol, abuse, COVID didn't help. A lot of these things I think are contributing to the bigger problem, which is people giving up on life, which is sad, because life can be amazing and beautiful. And in partnership, it can be beautiful, right? And you also see less marriages, less people in committed relationships now than ever. Those numbers are also higher as well. So people are just choosing to not be committed now. So there's a lot going on, and you have to ask a deeper question: what is the underlying cause that's creating this, this whole thing, right? Just because people aren't committed and being married, babies are still being born, which means there's less family. Which across the board, when you look at history, family is a cornerstone of successful civilization. So we don't have family, you don't have that whole component, everything starts to contribute in the bigger picture, right? So it's a big question that can go really deep to like a big societal issue that's going on, bigger than just men. It's contributing to bigger causes, I think. So that's my take.
To your point.
Thank you. I want to take a little point of privilege, if I can, because it is 9/11, and I thank everyone, and I want to take a point of privilege because we do have a question from Brittany, but I do want to say, Jamie, thank you for your questions, and I want to be. I want everyone listening to know that when you are looking at research literature, right, you can find any point of literature and type of research that feeds your own personal narrative. I promise you can do that. So when you are looking at something that's congregating a lot of information and giving you the high points, then we're missing a lot of the other details. so yes, Jamie's point is valid. There is actually literature that is proving that currently, that there are specific men, may they all rest in peace, that are taking on that action of suicide because they no longer they don't know how to fit in society, where they are not at the top of the food chain any longer. And then I just wanted to posit that, because it's very dangerous, as we were talking about generalizations or moving towards specificity, how it is that we are looking at whether male or female, who's committing suicide or whatnot. But I do want us to know that a lot of the things that I believe that Philip brought up in terms of, from historical perspective, right? How the family was created, what determined family, what role women had to play. I think it's important that someone needs to say that women did not have choice at one point in time. And therefore, whether it's emancipation of women or the increase of women's rights, or things like when men had the option to leave and walk away from their families. So women had to learn survival techniques that were different than what they were used to when they didn't have choices. I think we can have multitudes of discussions in this space. However, I do want to say to Brittany, thank you for waiting. And I'm going to try to figure out how to get you on camera because I think you're there. And I'm going to unmute you and then go ahead and ask your question, sis.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, panelists, for participating. My question is for the therapists and counselors. How do you date and navigate situations where your partner hits one of your triggers and you're confronted with how to navigate that and not like disconnect or like disassociate from the relationship?
Great question. Well, I think a lot of times if we are reacting to our partners, there's been a big disconnect in communication. A lot of times when couples come in, they're just unable to gain any ground. They're both pointing the finger at the other person, the other partner, who's reacting to who's provoking who. It's your fault, it's the other person's fault. And, they can't seem to get any kind of footing in terms of, advancement to build effective communication with one another. So that's why they usually come into therapy. I would suggest that you put aside, if your partner is agreeable, put aside an hour of time, one day a week at night, whenever you two agree to it. Each partner gets 30 minutes to freely communicate using I language. These are the things that I feel. These are the things that I sense, I notice with you. And this is how it reflects in me, kind of what similar to what Michael was saying. Each partner gets 30 minutes uninterrupted time to really communicate. And there can be, after that 30 minutes, there can be no rebuttal. There can be no trying to solve anything. It's merely just a time for each person to really let out what's going on, to release those resentments, to release those frustrations. The only thing the partner can ask of the other partner is clarifying points in examples. I heard you say this. Is there an example? I heard you say this. Is there an example? And then after that hour, you can go on about your life. And if you do that once a week, you can really clear the air. You can get in alignment with one another. Michael's idea of maybe even like sharing a document. I work a lot with couples, just again, how much time we commit to communicating with each other, how we communicate with each other throughout the week, and especially hitting at least 60 minutes of time where we can truly let out what's going on inside of us, so we don't assume what's going on in the other partner. If I know my partner's struggling with something, I'm not going to bring things forward to her, vice versa. So therefore, we know our trigger points, we know how reactive we're going to be, and it's set in a time and a place that we both can anticipate and preemptively prepare our emotions to sit and have hard conversation. If it's brought up just randomly, our nervous systems fire, we go into fight, flight, we shut down, and we can't hear each other. So it has to be put in the proper space and time to have those kind of conversations.
And if I can jump in, um, my experience with with techniques that um, invite people to share what's going on can often lead to increased triggering rather than de-escalating. They can
Mm-hmm.
increase escalation. One of the expectations that I have in my relationship is that I am going to get triggered, that I'm going to be in
Mm-hmm.
a fight, I'm going to be in a flight, and I'm going to be in a freeze, and that my partner is going to be experiencing those things as well. And what started to shift for me in terms of my own healing and my ability to be in relationship, one of the big pieces was to realize that my partner can't make me feel a particular way. The only person who can make me feel a particular way is me and my nervous system. So it allowed me to take responsibility for my emotional state rather than making my partner responsible for my emotional state. And it also allowed me to disconnect from my partner's emotional state because I knew that I could never be responsible for the way that they were feeling. I still need to be sensitive to what's going on for them to the extent that I can, but I'm not going to be, as soon as I'm in amygdala hijack, my empathy diminishes almost to non-existent. So much of what I can do when I'm in a regulated state, I'm not able to do when I'm in an activated state. My invitation to anybody who shares this, and thanks for the question, it's such a great question, is to go through a journey that involves shadow integration, that involves the learning of what it is that these triggers are a result of, and being able to go back and understand where they originated, and to make friends with the parts of ourselves that we're uncomfortable with, because ultimately what we're attacking is parts of ourselves that we see mirrored in our partner. And it's a beautiful process. It could take years, it could take several months, but if you can walk down that path, I think that you'll see the quality of relationship that you're seeking. And one of the most magnificent things about this is that it doesn't require that both partners be participating in doing this, though that's ideal. It's enough for one person to start breaking those patterns of escalation by shifting their reactiveness and the way that they respond, so that instead of things going backwards and forwards in the way that you've habituated to with your particular partner, you break the cycles one by one. Anybody who wants to learn more, look for me, and I'm happy to share tons more on this.
So, Brittany, thank you for your question. And it is 9:19. And if you were like me, and thank God I didn't have to talk all this time. I'm so happy for that. But I do want to say this. I want to give closing words to all of our panelists, if they have still remained on here during this time. And so I'm going to start with Michael and have you share about 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, the speed round, and make it like speed dating. What is it? What is it that is your closing words that you want us all to take away, or our call to action?
I think I want to just kind of rephrase a little bit um, of I can't see his name because I got clicked off. The gentleman that just shared with the awesome accent, Philip. Yeah.
Yep.
So towards the end, Philip was talking about a process that may have gone over someone's heads, but he's talking about shadow work. And basically, I just want to leave the audience with this, with really simplified. Everybody is a mirror manifestation of you. If you're getting triggered in a relationship, take it as an opportunity to be able to look at what's causing that and be able to heal yourself so that you can bring your best self to every relationship. I know the topic was around men and how to help men. Same thing with men. Look at your shadow triggers, look at your unresolved past traumas that you have, heal yourself so that you can step into the man that you are designed to be or created to be. And I think there was lots of great insight from all the panelists around what that healthy masculine man can look like. And then so I take a little bit of pieces of everybody and just I hope you guys do the work. And thank you for letting me be on this show, Kadada. Appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. Who is Dr. Pitt?
Absolutely. So, really, I'll just real shortly thank you, Kadada, again for this opportunity. Thank all the panelists that had the opportunity to speak and share their sentiments, and thank you to the guests who asked questions in the chat and even on live. I'm just going to leave you guys with one of my quotes for this particular topic on tonight, which is choices, chances, changes. You must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. My name is Dr. Casual Pitts, and thank you, Kadada, again for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you for being here. I always love to hear your voice. Philip, you are up next.
Yeah, such an honor to be part of this community of wise people and to hear the magnificent, loving, compassionate, intentional things that have been shared. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to go to my co-host, the fabulous Vinny Archer. And Vinny, what are your thoughts? What are your closing thoughts?
I mean, my closing thoughts is again, like, I want to thank all the panelists and everyone in the chat who have contributed to this. Like, I feel honored to be here. This was, I feel like almost like I was like someone in the audience to an extent, even though we're helping facilitate. I feel like I left with tools that I can use for myself, and I look forward to continuing this growth, looking into like male loneliness. And I feel like we did a really good job tonight looking at relationships and looking at like while in the relationship. And I would really love to dive deeper more into like the male loneliness and epidemic that we started with, and seeing if we can kind of deep dive into that, because I know a lot of our questions kept going back into like us as and people who have the tools and have are using the things that we need to be doing to help in our relationships and with hopefully helping others. But it kind of we kind of got away a little bit on the actual issue, and I would love to see if we can get back to that and kind of help on that side of the men who may be lonely, the women who are confused about what's going on with in the relationships, and getting those opposing viewpoints to help us come together before we're in the relationship versus while in the relationship. But again, I'm very grateful to be here, and I hope that we can continue on this journey together, and I hope I can see everyone in this panel again. Thank you, Kadada.
You are so welcome, Ebony. I appreciate you. And I just want to shout out because we have had some comments scrolling through it. It's hard to manage all things, but I just want to say, Chosen Culture, thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. We see your we definitely see everything that you're saying. I do want to say that we will most definitely, I will, Life Coaching Today, The Conflict Whisperer, we will be having more of these conversations. So definitely go to the Manosphere Facebook page. We're going to go kind of old school. Go to that Facebook page, like that, sign up, and we're going to find you all soon enough. In closing, and I like to take my Robert's Rules points of privilege, I do want to say this, that relationships are hard, no matter if they're intimate relationships, whether they're business, professional relationships, whatever those look like, they are hard. And when we are interacting with each other, we always bring ourselves to those conversations and we forget them. And that means that we bring the best and the worst of us. So we have to be mindful how we are showing up for and with each other. And if we treat each other with kindness first, we shouldn't have to take a biblical verse to teach us how to treat one another. We should not have to, but sometimes we have to be reminded. And so in closing, I want everyone to have an amazing evening. Thank you on behalf of this team, the Life Coaching Today team, the Grown Girls team, everybody that's over here, the Conflict Whisperer team. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, all you beautiful gentlemen. And I'm sorry if you don't like that word, you handsome gentlemen, depending on where you are in your masculinity. Thank you, gentlemen, for all showing up tonight and spending your evening with me. Go forward, be merry, and be kind. Have a good evening, everyone. Appreciate you all.